the mystery of poachers and wildlife killings. When survival turns into a crime, the forest becomes a courtroom without mercy. Hunger stands against law. Fear stands against nature. This is not just a story of animals hunted, but of humans pushed to the edge where one choice can destroy a life, an ecosystem, a future. Witness the unseen truth behind poaching, poverty, and silence. When survival turns into a crime. Coming soon. When survival turns into a crime. Poaching does not always begin with cruelty or hatred toward animals. Sometimes, it begins with an empty stomach, unpaid debts, or a sick child waiting for medicine. Deep inside, forests and grasslands, where law rarely reaches and opportunity rarely exists, survival becomes a daily battle. In these places, wildlife is not seen as beauty, it is seen as food, money, or escape. This story is not only about animals being hunted. It is about human desperation, broken systems, and choices made when the world offers very few alternatives. Who is a poacher, really? Popular imagination paints poachers as heartless villains. Reality is far more complicated. Many are farmers who lost land, fishermen whose rivers dried up, or laborers abandoned by development. They are fathers, mothers, and young men carrying responsibilities larger than their means. Understanding a poacher's mindset does not excuse the act, but it reveals the pressure behind it. When survival becomes uncertain, moral boundaries blur. To them, the forest is not protected land. It is the last employer left standing. Biology doesn't forgive. One death changes everything. In nature, every animal plays a role shaped by millions of years of evolution. When one tiger is killed, prey species multiply unnaturally. Vegetation is overgrazed. Forest structure changes. Rivers dry faster. This ripple effect is called trophic collapse, and it doesn't reverse easily. Biology does not forgive human mistakes. Unlike money or buildings, ecosystems cannot be rebuilt overnight. Each poached animal is not just a loss of life, it is a missing thread in a web that holds entire landscapes together. Poverty as a trap, not an excuse. Poverty does not justify poaching, but it explains why it happens. When people struggle for food, education, or healthcare, conservation becomes a luxury they cannot afford. A single animal can mean months of income far more than legal work offers. Without roads, schools, or jobs, forests become financial safety nets. The tragedy is that poverty pushes people to destroy the very ecosystems that could sustain them long term. It is a trap where short-term survival sacrifices future security. The black market, where animals become commodities. Behind every poached animal lies a global network. Ivory becomes jewelry. Horns become medicine. Skins become status symbols. The poacher earns the smallest share, while traffickers and buyers earn millions. This illegal wildlife trade is one of the world's largest black markets, rivaling drugs and weapons. Animals are reduced to products, stripped of identity and life. The true drivers of poaching are often far from forests, living in cities, untouched by blood or consequence, culture, myths, and deadly beliefs. In some regions, animals are killed not for money, but belief. Ancient myths promise strength, healing, or status from bones, horns, or flesh. These beliefs persist even when science disproves them. Culture is powerful. It shapes choices across generations. When tradition goes unquestioned, wildlife becomes a sacrifice to superstition. Changing such mindsets is difficult because belief is emotional, not logical. Conservation here is not about policing. It is about education, respect, and rewriting cultural narratives without erasing identity. When fear replaces coexistence, For communities living near wildlife, fear is real. Crops are destroyed overnight. Livestock is killed. Sometimes, people are injured or lose their lives. When compensation is slow or absent, anger builds. Wildlife turns from neighbor to enemy. In this emotional state, poaching becomes revenge rather than profit. Conservation fails when human suffering is ignored. Coexistence cannot be forced. It must be supported. Without protection for people, protection for animals becomes impossible. The silent suffering, not just death. Poaching is rarely quick or clean. Wire snares tear into flesh. Poison spreads slowly through bodies. Animals suffer for days before dying alone, frightened and in pain. Pregnant mothers collapse. Young ones wait beside lifeless bodies, unable to understand what happened. Even those rescued often carry lifelong injuries. This silent suffering remains unseen by most of the world. Poaching is not just killing, it is prolonged cruelty that scars ecosystems emotionally as well as biologically. Economic loss. No one talks about. Wildlife is not just ecological wealth, it is economic lifeline. Tourism supports guides, drivers, hotel staff, artisans, and entire villages. One living elephant can generate income for decades. A dead one provides profit once. Poaching steals future livelihoods from communities who depend on wildlife. As animals disappear, tourists stop coming, jobs vanish, and poverty deepens, ironically pushing more people toward poaching. It is a destructive cycle where killing wildlife destroys human opportunity. Law versus reality. Why punishment fails. Many countries have strict wildlife laws, but enforcement often targets the weakest link. Poor hunters are arrested while powerful traders escape. Corruption, political pressure, and lack of funding weaken protection systems. When justice feels selective, fear of law disappears. Punishment alone cannot solve poaching. Without addressing demand, corruption, and inequality, laws become symbolic rather than effective. Conservation fails when it punishes poverty instead of dismantling criminal networks. Children of poachers, a cycle passed down. Children raised in poaching communities grow up watching wildlife treated as income or threat. Without education or alternatives, they inherit the same mindset. Forests become classrooms where survival lessons replace moral ones. This generational cycle is one of conservation's biggest challenges. Break the cycle, and wildlife has a chance. Education, opportunity, and inclusion can turn future poachers into protectors, but only if society invests in them early. Biological time bomb extinction is irreversible. Species do not recover like economies. When numbers drop below a critical point, breeding fails, genetic diversity collapses, extinction becomes inevitable. Humans often realize loss only when silence replaces sound, when forests no longer echo with life. Evolution takes millions of years. Human greed can erase it in decades. Every poached animal pushes a species closer to a point of no return. This is a biological time bomb ticking quietly beneath human progress. When conservation saves humans too. Where conservation includes communities, miracles happen. When locals earn from tourism, monitoring, or guiding, wildlife becomes valuable, alive. Education empowers pride instead of resentment. Shared ownership replaces conflict. These success stories prove one truth. Protecting nature also protects people. Conservation works best not through force, but through fairness. When humans feel seen, supported, and respected, they choose protection over destruction. Saving wildlife begins by saving human dignity. In conclusion, the real question? Poaching is not just about animals dying. It is about systems failing. It reflects inequality, broken economies, harmful beliefs, and human desperation. The forest becomes a battlefield where survival and morality collide. The real question is not why poachers exist, but why society still forces people into such choices. Until human needs and wildlife protection walk together, the cycle will continue. Saving animals ultimately means fixing the world humans live in too. Poachers' mindset mystery. An appeal. If you like this post, please don't forget to like, share, give a super thanks, comment, and subscribe to our channel. We'll see you again with more exciting content. Until then, stay happy and stay curious. Thank you so much for being with us throughout, despite your busy schedule.